What if I told you that almost everything you worry about, the deadline at work, the argument you had last night, the number in your bank account, is a complete and utter waste of your precious energy? What if the path to unshakable, profound calm wasn't about getting everything you want, but about radically changing what you desire in the first place? Here's a statement that might challenge everything you've been taught. The daily anxiety, the chronic stress, the simmering frustration that you feel is not caused by your job, your boss, your partner, or the state of the world. It's caused by a single, fundamental misunderstanding of how reality actually works. A blind spot in our thinking that has been costing us our peace for centuries. But what if you could fix it? In this video, I'm not going to give you simple life hacks or fleeting motivational quotes. I'm going to give you the literal operating system for the human mind, the timeless framework the ancient Stoics used to endure plagues, exile, political turmoil, and war, not just with gritted teeth, but with a sense of profound purpose and tranquility. You will learn the one mental switch that can instantly neutralize the vast majority of your daily anxieties, and you will walk away with a practical, step-by-step guide to building an inner fortress, a truly unshakable core of peace, no matter what chaos life throws your way. This isn't just philosophy, this is a survival guide for the modern world. So let's begin with the cornerstone, the single most important idea you will ever learn. Number 1, the foundation. Mastering the dichotomy of control. So what is this one earth-shattering misunderstanding? This single idea so powerful it can rewire your entire experience of life. It's a principle with a slightly academic name, but I promise you, its application is profoundly simple and life-altering. It's called the dichotomy of control. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and rose to become one of the most respected thinkers of his time, boiled it down to this. Some things are within our power while others are not. That's it. It sounds almost laughably simple, but contained within that sentence is the key to unlocking human freedom. Let's break it down. The things within our power are, ultimately, a very short list. They are our thoughts, our judgments, our perspectives, our choices, and our actions. Essentially, our inner world. That's the entire kingdom over which we are the absolute sovereign. Now for the second category, things not within our power. This list is infinitely long. It includes, well, everything else. It includes the weather, the economy, traffic, and what other people think of you. It includes whether someone likes you, whether you get that promotion, whether your flight gets delayed, or whether you get sick. It even includes the final outcome of your best efforts, your health, your wealth, your reputation. The Stoics argued these are all ultimately outside of your complete control. You can influence them, yes, but you cannot command them. The vast majority of our human suffering, our anger, our anxiety, our despair, comes from one simple error. We spend our lives desperately trying to command the things we can only influence, while completely neglecting the one kingdom where we have total authority. Our own mind. Think about how this contrasts with our modern culture. We live in a world of hustle culture that tells us if we just work hard enough, grind long enough, and manifest intensely enough, we can control any outcome. We're told to be the CEO of our own life, which implies we should be able to manage every department, including the stock market and the opinions of others. This isn't empowering. It's a recipe for inevitable disappointment and chronic burnout. We set ourselves up for failure by playing a game we can never win. The Stoic approach is different. It's not about giving up. It's about strategic allocation of energy. Imagine an archer. The archer can control their training, their choice of bow and arrow, the way they hold their breath, the steadiness of their aim, and the moment of release. All of that is 100% within their power, but once the arrow leaves the bow, it is no longer theirs. They do not control the sudden gust of wind, a bird flying into the arrow's path, or the target suddenly moving. The amateur archer places all their happiness on whether the arrow hits the bulls, an outcome they don't fully control. The Stoic archer, however, places their sense of excellence and satisfaction in the process, in having done everything within their power to the best of their ability. The outcome is merely a bonus. Now, this is where most people get it wrong, and it's a critical distinction to make. The most common pitfall is mistaking this philosophy for passive resignation. People here don't worry about what you can't control and think it means sit back and do nothing. This could not be further from the truth. The dichotomy of control is the opposite of apathy. It's an invitation to intense action. By strategically ignoring the infinite list of things you can't control, you liberate 100% of your focus, your energy, and your willpower to pour into the few things you can. You stop wasting energy screaming at the rain and instead use that energy to build a better shelter. You stop worrying about whether your boss will appreciate your work and pour that focus into making the work itself undeniably excellent. The second common mistake is drawing the line in the wrong place, especially with our emotions. We say, "I can't help how I feel," and in a way, that's true. You can't control the initial biological flash of anger when someone cuts you off in traffic. You can't control the jolt of fear when you get an unexpected email from your boss. These are automatic, but that initial flash is not the end of the story. You have absolute 100% control over the next moment, over the story you tell yourself about that feeling. You can't control the spark, but you can control whether you pour gasoline on it. You can see the flash of anger and choose to judge it as a righteous call to war, or you can choose to see it as a fleeting biological signal and let it pass. That choice is your superpower. So how do we make this practical? How do we take this out of the realm of philosophy and into our messy, everyday lives? Here's your first tool. I want you to try this exercise tonight. Take out a piece of paper or open a new note on your phone. Draw a line straight down the middle. On the top of the left column, write, "Within my control." On the top of the right column, write, "Outside my control." Now I want you to think about that one thing that's been causing you the most stress this week. That big, heavy worry that follows you around. Take every single piece of that worry and place it in its correct column. For example, if you're worried about a big presentation, in the outside, my control column might go, the audience's reaction, whether my boss likes it, technical glitches with the projector, how my presentation compares to others. In the within my control column goes, how many hours I practice, the quality of my slides, anticipating potential questions, the energy and attitude I bring into the room, getting a good night's sleep beforehand. Look at your two lists. All of your power, all of your productive energy should be focused solely on the left column. The right column, you must learn to look at it with a calm, strategic indifference. It's not your circus, those are not your monkeys. And from this day forward, in any moment of rising stress or anxiety, I want you to pause and ask yourself one simple, clarifying question. In this entire situation, what part of this is actually up to me? This question is a mental reset button. It pulls you back from the dizzying chaos of the uncontrollable world and anchors you firmly in the quiet, powerful center of your own mind. This is the foundation. And once you build your life on this solid ground, you become unshakable. So you've now separated the world into two columns, the chaotic, uncontrollable storm outside, and the quiet, ordered kingdom of your own mind. You understand that your energy is best spent focusing only on what is up to you. Your thoughts, your judgments, and your actions. But this raises a profound and immediate question. If you're going to be the absolute sovereign of your inner world, what laws will you rule by? When you face a difficult choice, and life is nothing but a series of difficult choices, how do you decide what the right response is? How do you ensure your actions are not just controlled, but also wise, noble, and true? To do that, you need a compass, and that brings us to the second pillar of the unshakable self. Number 2, your inner compass, defining the values that guide your response. What if I told you that the modern definition of success is a deeply flawed target, and that aiming directly for it is one of the surest ways to feel lost, empty, and unfulfilled? We are taught to chase nouns, a promotion, a bigger house, a certain number of followers, a relationship. These are external goals, but the Stoics understood a deeper truth. Lasting fulfillment comes not from what you get, but from who you choose to be in the pursuit of it. This is the critical difference between goals and values. A goal is a destination, a value is a direction. A goal is something you achieve and cross off a list, often leaving you with a hollow feeling of what now. A value is a principle you can live by, every single moment of every single day for the rest of your life. It is an infinite game. You can't be courageous 24/7 as a finished state, but you can always choose to act courageously in the next moment. You can't achieve honesty as a final trophy, but you can always choose to be honest in your next conversation. Values are not nouns to be acquired, they are adverbs that describe how you live, courageously, honestly, justly, with discipline, with kindness. Without a clearly defined set of values, your inner kingdom is in a state of anarchy. You'll make decisions based on what feels good in the moment, what's easiest, or what you think other people want from you. Your life will lack a coherent narrative. You'll be a ship with a powerful engine but no rudder, pushed around by the unpredictable currents of your own moods and the high winds of social pressure. A defined set of values is the rudder. It allows you to navigate the storm with purpose and direction, even when you can't see the shore. This is where so many of us get horribly lost. The first and most dangerous pitfall is that we outsource our value system. We inherit a set of borrowed values from our parents, our culture, or worse, from the algorithm on social media. We chase the life that looks good in someone else's Instagram feed. We become a doctor because our parents valued prestige, or we enter a high-paying industry because society values wealth, all while a quiet inner voice is telling us this isn't who we are. This leads to a life that can look incredibly successful from the outside, but feels deeply inauthentic and hollow on the inside. You've climbed the ladder of success only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. The second common mistake is confusing values with vague virtues. It's easy to say my value is integrity, but what does that actually mean in the real world? What does it look like in action? A value is only real when it costs you something. Integrity isn't real until you choose to tell an inconvenient truth that might cost you a deal. Courage isn't real until you choose to speak up for an idea you believe in, even when your voice is shaking. Your values are forged in the fire of these difficult choices, not in the comfort of abstract thought. So how do we find our own, authentic values? Not the ones we think we should have, but the ones that are already written in our code. Here is a simple, powerful exercise. I want you to reflect on your life. Think of 2 or 3 moments where you felt genuinely proud of yourself. Not because you won an award or got praised, but because you knew deep down that you did the right thing. A time you stood up for someone, a time you completed something incredibly difficult through sheer discipline, a time you were honest when it was hard. Now, look at those moments. What was the underlying principle, the value that was driving your action? In that moment of pride, were you living out a commitment to justice, to compassion, to perseverance, to creativity? Your past moments of authentic pride are a treasure map leading directly to your core values. Once you have a list, try to narrow it down. Force yourself to choose the top 3 to 5. These are your non-negotiables. These are the load-bearing walls of your character. Write them down. Put them somewhere you can see them every day. These values now become your ultimate decision-making filter. When you're faced with a choice, big or small, you no longer have to guess. You can hold the options up to the light of your values and ask a simple, clarifying question. Which of these paths will allow me to be more of who I want to be? Which action is the truest expression of my commitment to courage, honesty, kindness? When you start making choices this way, something incredible happens. The chaotic noise of the world begins to fade. The opinions of others lose their power. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are acting from a place of deep internal coherence. You are navigating by your own North Star. But even with a perfect compass, the seas will get rough. Your mind will still be flooded with powerful, ancient, and often irrational emotions. So how do you handle those moments? How do you create the space to even use your compass when you're in the middle of a storm? That requires mastering a new skill, the art of the sacred pause. And that's exactly what we're going to break down next. You have your compass. You've defined the core values that will guide you, that will serve as your North Star when you navigate the treacherous waters of life. But a compass is useless if you're in the middle of a hurricane, being tossed around so violently that you can't even get a steady reading. What good is knowing your value is patience when, in a flash of anger, you've already sent the scathing email? What good is kindness when you've already spoken the hurtful words? The problem is that the gap between a trigger and our reaction can be terrifyingly small, a fraction of a second. It feels automatic, uncontrollable, but what if it isn't? What if the single most powerful thing you could do in a moment of crisis wasn't to act, but to do absolutely nothing at all? In a world that worships speed, our greatest strength is learning how to slow down. We need to learn how to create a space for wisdom to enter. We need to master the art of the sacred pause. Number 3, from trigger to wisdom, mastering the sacred pause. Every emotional hijacking you've ever experienced follows a predictable, 3-part chain reaction. It's like a series of dominoes, set up and ready to fall at a moment's notice. The first domino is the trigger. This is the external event. Your boss criticizes your work in front of the team. Someone you love says something careless. You get cut off in traffic, but the trigger itself is rarely the true source of the emotional explosion. It's just the spark. The real fuel is the invisible history it ignites. That criticism from your boss doesn't just sting in the moment. It activates a deep, old script from your childhood that whispers, "You're not good enough." A careless word from a loved one doesn't just hurt, it taps into an ancient fear of abandonment. These triggers are unseen tripwires connected to the most vulnerable parts of our past. The moment that tripwire is hit, the second domino falls instantly, the body's alarm. Before your conscious mind even has time to form a thought, your body is already in crisis mode. Your sympathetic nervous system floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart starts hammering in your chest, your jaw clenches, your shoulders tense up and rise to your ears, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Your body is more honest than your mind. It's screaming a simple, ancient message: threat. Danger, react now. And that leads to the third and final domino, the impulsive reaction. This is when the domino chain is left unchecked. Fueled by the invisible script of the trigger and the powerful chemicals of the body's alarm, you act on pure instinct. You fire off the defensive email. You lash out with a wounding comment. You lay on the horn and rage at the other driver. You have been hijacked. You've handed over your freedom, your peace, and your power to a fleeting external event. But what if you could stop the chain reaction? You can. The secret lies in creating a space between the second and third domino, between the body's alarm and the impulsive reaction. This space is the sacred pause. It is the birthplace of freedom, wisdom, and strength. In that tiny sliver of time, you can go from being a passenger on a runaway train to being the conductor, able to slow it down and steer it in a new direction. This is profoundly countercultural. The entire architecture of our modern world is designed to eliminate this pause. Twitter, instant messaging, email notifications, they are all engineered for immediate, thoughtless reaction. They thrive on outrage and impulsivity. Our technology is actively training us to be more reactive, less wise. To reclaim your peace, you have to consciously fight against this programming. You have to intentionally cultivate the pause. Now here is the most important distinction you will ever learn about this practice, a pitfall that traps so many well-intentioned people. The pause is for observation, not suppression. Suppression is the wrong way. Suppression is when you feel the anger rising and you clench your fists and think, "I'm not angry. This is stupid. I shouldn't feel this way." You are trying to violently push the emotion down, to deny its existence. This is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes immense energy, and eventually it will explode to the surface with even greater force, often at an inappropriate time. Observation is the right way. It's the Stoic way. It is a gentle, curious, non-judgmental acknowledgement of reality. It's saying, "Ah, there is anger. How interesting. I feel a burning in my chest and my hands are clenched. This is the human experience of anger. I am not the anger. I am the awareness that is noticing the anger. By seeing it clearly, you separate yourself from it. You take away its power to consume you. So how do you do this in the heat of the moment? You use a tool, a practical, repeatable technique. I call it the 3-breath rule. It's simple, it's discreet, and it can change the entire trajectory of a relationship, a career, or a life. The next time you feel that emotional hijacking begin, I want you to do this before you speak or type a single word. First breath, breathe in deeply, and as you do, simply acknowledge the physical sensation in your body. Don't judge it, just notice it. Okay, there's that tightness in my chest. Noted. Second breath. Breathe in again, and this time, question the narrative. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Is it 100% true? Is there another way to see this? Third breath. Take your final, slow breath. And on this breath, you align. You consult your inner compass. You ask, what would my value of courage/patience/wisdom have me do next? What action would the person I want to be take right now? 1. Acknowledge. 2. Question. 3. Align. This simple 3-breath process might take 10 seconds, but in those 10 seconds, you achieve a miracle. You transform a moment of blind reaction into an act of conscious choice. You stop being a domino and start being the hand that decides if they fall. But what exactly should you be doing with your mind inside that pause? How do you rewire those automatic thoughts and stories? That takes learning how to become the architect of your own mind, and we'll lay out the blueprints for that in the next step. You have created the pause, that sacred 10-second space of freedom between the world's trigger and your response. You're standing in that quiet clearing. The storm of emotion is swirling around you, but you are not the storm. You are the calm center. But now what? What do you do in that space? How do you actively work with the thoughts and stories that are fueling the storm? Your brain is a storytelling machine. It runs 24/7, constantly interpreting the world and weaving narratives to make sense of it all. The problem is, the default author of those stories is often a panicky, insecure, and slightly paranoid screenwriter who specializes in worst-case scenarios. But what if you could walk into the writer's room of your own mind, thank that screenwriter for their service, and politely tell them you're taking over the script from now on? You can. You just need to learn how to become the architect of your own mind. Number 4, the mind's architect, how to observe and reframe your inner narrative. The ancient Stoics and modern therapists agree on one profound truth. We do not get upset by events themselves, but by the judgments we make about them. It was never the traffic jam that made you angry, it was your judgment. This is a disaster. This is disrespecting my time. My day is ruined. It wasn't the rejection that caused you pain. It was the story you told yourself. This means I am unworthy of love. Becoming the architect of your mind is a 3-step process. It's a blueprint for taking a raw, painful feeling and transforming it into a source of strength and wisdom. Step 1 is to observe. You must become the watcher. This is the practice of metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. Imagine your life is a movie playing on a giant screen. Most of the time, we are so lost in the plot, so identified with the main character, that we forget we are watching a movie at all. The practice of observation is like consciously pushing your chair back, getting up, and walking to the back of the theater. From there, you can see the whole screen. You can see the character on the screen experiencing anger or fear, but you know from the back of the theater that you are not the character. You are the awareness watching it all unfold. You simply notice the thoughts as they drift by like clouds in the sky, without judging them, without grabbing onto them, and without trying to force them away. Step 2 is to label. You must name the monster. An unnamed fear is a terrifying, shapeless phantom that can consume your entire world. But the moment you can turn and face it and give it a specific name, it shrinks. It becomes manageable. There is immense psychological power in moving from a vague, overwhelming feeling of dread to a specific, observable thought. This is the fear of failure, or this is the feeling of envy, or this is my old friend, the fear of not being liked. When you label an emotion or a thought, you define it. It no longer defines you. You are not a fearful person. You are a person who is currently experiencing the sensation of fear. The distinction is everything. Step 3 is to reframe. You must rewrite the script. This is the active, architectural work. Once you've observed the automatic negative thought and labeled it, you can challenge it. You can put it on trial. Let's say a friend cancels plans with you. The automatic script, written by your paranoid inner screenwriter, is, they canceled because they don't really want to see me. I'm not important to them. I always get left out. The reframed script, written by you, the new architect, is, I feel a pang of disappointment, and that's a normal human feeling. My friend canceled plans. The reason is unknown to me. It is most likely related to something going on in their life and is not a judgment on my worth as a person. This now frees up my evening for me to read that book I wanted to finish. Now, this is not the same as toxic positivity. This is a critical point. Toxic positivity is denial. It's slapping a fake smile on top of a real problem and saying, everything is great, good vibes only. Stoic reframing, on the other hand, is rooted in realism and empowerment. It acknowledges the negative feeling, I feel disappointed, but refuses to accept the destructive and likely untrue story that comes with it. It's about finding a perspective that is more true, more useful, and that returns the locus of control back to you. Of course, like any new skill, there are common pitfalls. The first is falling into analysis paralysis. You get so caught up in observing and labeling your thoughts that you end up in a navel-gazing loop, endlessly ruminating on your own feelings without ever moving to a new action. Remember, the goal of this process is not just to understand your mind, but to free yourself to act more wisely in the world. The second pitfall is criticizing yourself for having negative thoughts in the first place. You think, why am I so anxious? I should be better at this. This is just adding a second layer of judgment on top of the first. The goal is not to achieve a perfectly silent, angelic mind. That's impossible. The goal is to become a skilled gardener of your mind. A good gardener doesn't scream at the weeds. They simply acknowledge them, gently pull them out, and continue to nurture the plants they want to grow. So here is your tool for this practice. Think of it as the courtroom of the mind. The next time a powerful negative thought takes hold, put it on trial. 1. Identify the accusation. What is the automatic negative thought saying? Write it down as a clear, prosecutorial statement. I am a total failure because I made a mistake on that project. 2. Act as the defense attorney. Now you step in. Cross-examine that thought with relentless logic. What is the hard evidence for this sweeping claim? Is it true that one mistake erases all past successes? Can you present evidence of times when you were not a failure? Is it possible that capable, intelligent people sometimes make mistakes? What would a reasonable, outside observer say about this situation? 3. Deliver the new verdict. Based on the evidence, deliver a more balanced, true, and useful judgment. The accused is not a total failure. The accused is a capable human being who made a specific error from which they can learn and improve. Case dismissed. When you practice this, you stop being a prisoner in the courtroom of your own mind, subject to the whims of a frantic prosecutor. You become the judge. You become the architect. Now that you have the tools to manage your inner world, how does this translate to your relationships with others? How do you protect your inner peace when the outside world and the people in it constantly try to test it? That requires building a new kind of strength, the art of connection through healthy boundaries, and that's what we'll build next. You've become the architect of your mind. You can stand in that sacred pause, observe your thoughts, and rewrite the scripts that no longer serve you. You are building an inner fortress, a citadel of peace and reason. But a fortress, no matter how strong, will eventually fall if its outer walls are constantly under siege. How do you protect that inner peace when the demands of the world, your boss, your family, your friends, the constant notifications, are relentlessly trying to breach your defenses? What if I told you that the kindest, most loving, and most effective thing you could do for all of your relationships wasn't to give more of yourself, but to start strategically protecting yourself? And what if saying no more often was the secret to creating deeper, more authentic connections built on respect, not obligation? This is the art of setting healthy boundaries. Number 5, the art of connection, not walls. Setting and enforcing healthy boundaries. Let's be clear about what a boundary is not. A boundary is not a 20-foot concrete wall you build around your heart to keep everyone out. That's a prison, and it's built from fear. A boundary is also not an ultimatum designed to control someone else's behavior. That's manipulation. A healthy boundary is a beautiful garden fence with a gate. It lovingly defines your property. It says, this space right here, this is my time, my energy, my emotional well-being, and my self-respect. I am the sole caretaker of this space. The fence keeps out things that would trample the garden, but the gate allows you to consciously and joyfully invite in the people and experiences that will help it flourish. You control the gate. This is the practical, real-world application of the dichotomy of control to your relationships. You cannot control if your boss will email you at 10 p.m. You cannot control if a family member will ask you an invasive question. You cannot control if a friend will ask you for a favor you're uncomfortable with, but you have absolute, 100% control over your response. You control whether you open the gate. For many of us, especially those who were raised to be people pleasers, the idea of setting a boundary feels selfish, harsh, or even cruel. We believe that being a good person, a good employee, a good child, a good friend, means having no fence at all. It means letting anyone wander through our garden at any time, taking whatever they want. But this doesn't lead to harmony. It leads to a garden full of weeds and a heart full of quiet, toxic resentment. When you constantly say yes on the outside while your soul is screaming no on the inside, you are not being kind. You are being dishonest, both to yourself and to the other person. True connection cannot be built on a foundation of resentment. This is where we hit the most common and painful pitfall, the guilt hangover. The first few times you set a clear boundary, you will likely be flooded with a tidal wave of guilt. Your nervous system, which is addicted to the approval that comes from people-pleasing, will sound every alarm. It will scream you're being selfish. They're going to be mad at you. You're a bad person. I want you to know that this guilt is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It is a withdrawal symptom. It is the feeling of your brain recalibrating away from seeking external validation and toward generating internal self-respect. You must learn to sit with that discomfort. It is the price of freedom, and it is a price worth paying. The second critical mistake is the empty threat. This is when you build a beautiful fence, but you leave the gate unlocked and swinging in the wind. You say, "I will not engage in conversations where I'm being yelled at," but the moment the yelling starts, you stay and fight. When you do this, you teach people that your boundaries are meaningless suggestions. You teach them that your no can be negotiated into a yes if they just push hard enough. This is worse than having no boundary at all. Your word to yourself must be your bond. You must enforce the boundaries you set, calmly and consistently. So how do we do this gracefully? Here is a simple, powerful formula for stating a boundary. It is clear, calm, and focuses on your own actions, not theirs. The formula is, I feel need you're feeling or need, when you, their specific, observable behavior. If this continues, I will your specific, controllable action to protect yourself. Let's see it in action with some practical scripts you can use today. For your boss who emails you after hours, I am fully committed to my work during business hours. To be at my best, I need to disconnect in the evenings to recharge. If emails are sent after 6 p.m., I will respond to them first thing the next morning. You're not telling them not to email, you're stating when you will respond. For a critical family member, I know you mean well, but I feel hurt when my parenting choices are criticized. I'm not looking for advice on this right now. If the criticism continues, I will need to change the subject or end the conversation for today. For a friend who is constantly late, I value our friendship and our time together. When you are more than 15 minutes late, I feel disrespected. If you're running that late in the future, I will go ahead and start without you or make other plans. Notice that none of these are attacks. They are calm, clear statements of self-respect. They are an invitation for the other person to meet you in a place of mutual respect. Some people won't like your new fence. That's okay. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to tend to your own garden. As you get better at protecting your inner peace from external demands, you'll find you have more genuine energy and love to give. But what about the internal storms? The overwhelming feelings of stress and anxiety that seem to come from nowhere? How do we use all these tools to navigate those powerful emotional states? That requires a specific set of resilient practices, and that's our next focus. You've built your inner fortress, you have your compass of values, you've mastered the sacred pause, and you've even become the architect of your own thoughts. You have all the tools to manage your mind. But there is a traitor within the gates. An internal tyrant who can undo all your hard work. A voice that whispers poison in your ear, telling you that you must always be right, that you must never look weak, that every criticism is a declaration of war, and every apology is a humiliating defeat. This tyrant is the ego. And what if I told you that this part of you, the part that most desperately wants to project strength, is actually the source of your greatest weakness? And what if true invulnerability wasn't found in building thicker armor, but in having the profound courage to take the armor off completely? Number 6, beyond the ego. Cultivating true strength through empathy and self-compassion. In our culture, we often confuse strength with hardness. We think of strength as being unflinching, unfeeling, impenetrable. But this is the ego's definition of strength, and it is incredibly fragile. The ego builds a brittle identity, a carefully curated image of perfection that needs constant validation from the outside world. It lives in terror of being wrong, of being criticized, of looking foolish. And because of that, it shatters at the first sign of real-world feedback. The ego is the single greatest obstacle to learning, to connection, and to growth, because its primary directive is self-preservation at all costs. True strength, Stoic strength, is the opposite. It is not brittle, it is flexible. It is not defensive, it is open. It's not about proving you are right, it's about having the humility to learn when you are wrong. And the tools we use to dissolve the ego and cultivate this true, resilient strength are empathy and compassion. Let's start with empathy. Empathy is often misunderstood as a soft skill. It is not. It is a strategic superpower for preserving your own peace. When someone acts poorly towards you, they're rude, dismissive, or unfair. The ego-driven response is immediate and personal. How dare they do that to me? They have no respect for me. Your entire inner world is now held hostage by their behavior. The empathetic response, however, depersonalizes the event. It creates a space for curiosity instead of injury. It asks, I wonder what pain, fear, or insecurity is causing them to act this way. You shift from being the target of their behavior to being an observer of their struggle. This doesn't mean you excuse their actions, but it does mean you don't have to absorb their toxicity. Their chaos is about them, not you. You can see their metaphorical arrows flying past you without feeling the need to catch them and stab yourself with them. But while empathy is how you wisely interact with the world, self-compassion is how you wisely interact with yourself. And for many of us, this is the harder part. We are our own harshest critics. We forgive our friends for mistakes we would crucify ourselves for. When you stumble or fail, your ego and your inner critic team up to unleash a torrent of shame. You're an idiot. You'll never get this right. You're a failure. Shame is a terrible motivator. It doesn't inspire growth, it inspires hiding. Self-compassion is the antidote. It is the voice of a wise and loving friend. When you fail, self-compassion doesn't say you're a loser. It says, that didn't work. That's okay. Failure is a part of the human experience. What can we learn from this so we can try again, a little wiser this time? Self-compassion is not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about giving yourself the support you need to get back on the hook. It is the fuel for resilience. Of course, this is where we run into two dangerous pitfalls. The first is mistaking empathy for becoming a doormat. People think, well, I understand they're hurting, so I should just let them treat me however they want. This is a complete misapplication of the concept. The rule is this. You can have compassion for the source of their pain while still holding them accountable for the way they deliver it. In fact, empathy makes your boundaries stronger because they come from a place of calm understanding, not angry reaction. You can say, I understand you're upset, but it is not okay for you to speak to me that way, and I will not continue this conversation until we can be respectful. Empathy and boundaries are not enemies, they are partners. The second pitfall is mistaking self-compassion for self-pity or excuses. Self-pity is passive. It says, poor me, life is so hard I give up. Self-compassion is active. It says, yes, this is hard. And because it's hard, I will be kind to myself, give myself the support I need, and then get back to work. Self-compassion is not a free pass to abandon your goals. It's the mindset that makes achieving them possible over the long, messy, imperfect journey. So here are your tools to cultivate these strengths. First, for empathy, the next time someone acts in a way that triggers you, practice the what's their story. Exercise before you react. Pause and invent 3 possible stories for their behavior that have absolutely nothing to do with you. For the rude cashier, 1. Maybe they just found out a loved one is sick. 2. Maybe they're in physical pain from standing for 8 hours. 3. Maybe they're a single parent worried about paying rent. Whether these stories are true is irrelevant. The exercise itself breaks the ego's powerful tendency to make everything about you. Second, for self-compassion, use the treat yourself like a friend protocol. The next time you make a mistake, fail, or fall short, stop, freeze, and ask yourself this question. If my dearest friend came to me in this exact situation, what would I say to them? Then say those exact words with that exact tone of voice to yourself. You would never look your friend in the eye and say, "You are a worthless failure." You would offer them kindness, perspective, and encouragement. You must learn to offer yourself the same grace. By dissolving the ego with empathy and fueling your journey with self-compassion, you build a quiet, flexible, and truly unbreakable strength. You're now equipped to handle your inner world and your relationships. But how do we apply all of this as a complete system to combat the overwhelming, modern epidemics of stress and anxiety? That requires a dedicated, resilient practice, and that is our next, final step. You've fortified your mind, you've found your compass, you've learned to pause, you've rewritten your inner scripts, and you've learned to interact with yourself and others from a place of strength and compassion. You are equipped, but still, the feeling comes. That low-grade hum of anxiety in the morning, that wave of stress that hits on a Sunday evening, the feeling of being overwhelmed by the sheer pace and pressure of modern life. We have more comfort, more convenience, and more technology than any humans in history, yet we are arguably the most anxious generation to have ever lived. What if our entire approach to stress and anxiety is fundamentally flawed? What if, instead of desperately trying to avoid, numb, or eliminate all difficulty, the secret to building unshakable resilience was to intentionally and strategically meditate on it every single morning? Number 7. The resilient practice: Stoic tools for navigating modern stress. Let's begin by reframing what stress actually is. We treat stress and anxiety as if they are malfunctions of our system. They are not, they are features. Stress is simply a biological signal that something you care about is at stake. You don't feel stress about things you're indifferent to. You feel stress about the presentation because you care about your career. You feel anxiety about a relationship because you care about that person. The goal, then, is not to silence the signal. The goal is to learn how to interpret it as valuable information and respond with skill instead of panic. This is where we introduce one of the most powerful and perhaps most counterintuitive practices of the Stoics. It's a proactive anxiety vaccine. It's called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Now that sounds terrifying, but stick with me. This is not about morbidly dwelling on disaster. It is a strategic dress rehearsal for your mind. Here's how it works. Every morning, you take a few moments to calmly and rationally visualize the things that could go wrong during your day. You don't just think about them, you see them. You might visualize getting stuck in a massive traffic jam. You might visualize a key client pulling out of a deal. You might visualize a difficult, emotionally charged conversation you need to have. And this is the most important part of the practice, you don't stop there. After you visualize the negative event, you then vividly visualize yourself responding to it with your chosen virtues. You see yourself stuck in traffic, but instead of raging, you see yourself taking a deep breath and using the time to listen to an interesting podcast. You see the client pulling out, but instead of panicking, you see yourself responding with professionalism, analyzing what can be learned, and calmly moving on to the next task. What this incredible exercise does is twofold. First, it strips future difficulties of their power of shock. If any of these things actually happen during the day, your mind says, yes, I was expecting you. I've already prepared for this. The emotional hijacking is short-circuited. Second, and more importantly, it is a form of mental practice. Just like a pilot in a flight simulator, you are rehearsing your ideal response, making it more likely that you will actually perform that way under pressure. This entire practice is in direct opposition to our modern comfort-seeking culture, which tells us that the ideal life is one free of friction. The Stoics knew this was a fool's errand. They believed that you cannot become a skilled sailor by only ever sailing on a calm sea. You need the storms. Character is not forged in comfort, it is forged in adversity. hardship is not an obstacle to your life. It is the very material from which you build your strength. This is the essence of a growth mindset, seeing every challenge not as a threat, but as a curriculum designed for your own development. The most common pitfall here is letting this premeditation turn into anxious, unproductive rumination. The key is to always complete the exercise. Do not just visualize the problem, you must visualize your virtuous response. The focus is always on what is within your control, your actions, your attitude, your character. The other trap is using the idea of embracing imperfection as an excuse for mediocrity. Embracing imperfection isn't about lowering your standards, it's about raising your resilience. It means having the courage to aim for excellence, knowing that you will inevitably fall short at times, and possessing the self-compassion to get back up, learn, and aim high once again. So let's put this into a simple, actionable routine. I call it the 5-minute Stoic start. Before you even look at your phone in the morning, give yourself these 5 minutes. Minute 1, gratitude. Start by thinking of 3 simple things you are grateful for right now. The warmth of your bed, the quiet of the morning, the simple fact that you woke up. This grounds you in what is good. Minutes 2 and 3, premeditation. Visualize 1 or 2 potential challenges for the day ahead. See them. Then vividly rehearse yourself responding to them from your highest self, guided by your values. Minute 4, intention. Set 1 clear intention for your day. Not a to-do list, but a to-be list. Today, my intention is to practice patience, or today, I will listen more than I speak. Minute 5, perspective. Gently remind yourself of your own mortality, memento mori. This isn't morbid. It's clarifying. It reminds you that this day is a precious, unrepeatable gift. It infuses your day with purpose and urgency to not waste it on trivial frustrations. By practicing this, you are no longer starting your day on defense, waiting for the world to happen to you. You are starting on offense, prepared, centered, and ready to engage with life on your own terms. You are now truly equipped. But there is one final, ultimate step. A mindset so powerful it can transform not just your day, but the entire fabric of your life, turning every event, good or bad, into a source of strength. This is the capstone of our philosophy. It is the practice of taking ultimate ownership. You've done the work. You have a system for preparing your mind for the day, for navigating the inevitable friction and stress that life throws at you. You are no longer just surviving your days. You are actively engaging with them, armed with the tools of resilience. But what about the things you can't prepare for? The bolt of lightning from a clear blue sky, the phone call that changes everything. The events that are so far outside our control and expectations that they threaten to shatter the very foundations we've built. I'm about to share the single most liberating, and perhaps the most challenging, idea in all of human philosophy. What if you could reach a state of mind where nothing could truly harm your inner self? Not failure, not betrayal, not even profound loss. Not because you've become numb and unfeeling, but because you've learned the ultimate alchemy. How to turn every obstacle into fuel. Number 8, the ultimate goal, owning your life with Amor, Fati. This entire journey, every step we have taken, has been leading to one final, transformative shift in perspective. It begins with taking ultimate responsibility. This is the moment you permanently fire the part of your brain that blames. You stop saying, "He made me so angry," and you start saying, "I allowed myself to become angry." You stop saying, "This situation is unbearably stressful," and you start saying, "I am choosing to interpret this situation as stressful." You stop blaming your past, your circumstances, or other people for the state of your inner world. You take the radical, terrifying, and exhilarating step of owning it completely. Your peace is your responsibility. Your character is your responsibility. Your happiness is your responsibility. This is the final reclamation of power. But it is not the final step. It is the launchpad for something even more profound. It is the gateway to the mindset the Stoics aimed for, and the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche later named Amor Fati, a love of one's fate. Amor Fati is a three-stage evolution beyond simple endurance. The first stage is tolerance. You grit your teeth and bear what life throws at you. The second stage is acceptance. You calmly and rationally acknowledge reality for what it is without resisting it. This is where most self-help stops, and it is a powerful place to be. But there is a third level. The third level is love. You actively embrace, welcome, and even love everything that happens, good and bad, as if you had chosen it yourself. This is the opposite of the victim mentality that is so pervasive in our culture. The victim mentality says, life happens to me. It's a passive, powerless stance that breeds resentment and helplessness. Amor Fati says, life happens for me. It's an active, powerful stance that transforms every event into a necessary and vital part of your unique story. You don't just accept the failure, you love it for the humility it taught you. You don't just tolerate the betrayal, you love it for the resilience it forged in you. You don't just endure the loss. You love it for how it clarified what truly matters in your life. You would not trade the lessons, so you cannot wish away the events that taught them to you. They were all part of the curriculum you needed to become the person you are today. Now the immediate and valid challenge to this idea is, how can anyone love a true tragedy? A devastating illness, the loss of a loved one. This is the great pitfall of Amor Fati, that it can feel like an inauthentic, even offensive form of denial in the face of real suffering. And it's crucial to understand that this is not a simple switch you flip. It is the practice of a lifetime. It is not about pretending to be happy that tragedy struck. It is about the long, difficult work of integrating that tragedy into your life story and asking the most powerful question there is. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? That question only leads to bitterness and despair. Instead, you ask the question that is the very engine of Amor Fati. How can I use this? This question is a form of alchemy. It turns lead into gold. It transforms a roadblock into a building block. You lose your job. The question is not why me. The question is, how can I use this unexpected freedom to build a career that is more aligned with my values? You suffer a painful injury. The question is not why is my body betraying me. The question is, how can I use this period of physical stillness to cultivate my mind, to practice patience, to deepen my relationships? A relationship ends in heartbreak. The question is not what's wrong with me. The question is, how can I use the lessons from this pain to become a more whole and loving person for the future? How can I use this? It is the ultimate expression of taking responsibility. It finds agency even in powerlessness. It finds opportunity in every obstacle. And so, our journey comes full circle. We started by building the foundation, understanding what we can and cannot control. We found our inner compass in our values. We learned to create a sacred pause, and within that pause, to act as the architects of our minds. We learned to build fences of healthy boundaries, and to dissolve the ego with empathy and self-compassion. We equipped ourselves with resilient practices to face down daily stress. And finally, we have arrived at the ultimate goal. To not just accept our lives, but to love them in their entirety. This is not a checklist to be completed. It is a philosophy to be lived, a practice to return to every single day. You don't need to be perfect at it. You just need to be willing to begin, willing to choose a response over a reaction, willing to ask, how can I use this? Willing to take ownership of this one wild, precious life. If this journey has spoken to you, I encourage you to choose just one of these 8 practices to focus on this week. Just one. Let me know in the comments which one you're choosing. Is it the dichotomy of control? Is it practicing the 3-breath rule? Let's make this a community of practice. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found value here, liking this video and subscribing to the channel helps more than you know. You definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, stay grounded, stay intentional, and remember, the power is and always has been within you.